A leaked clip from the UK Coast Guard shows a humanoid figure with glowing eyes breaching the surface. In a murky lake video, a swimmer dives down and is met with a loud, deep growl. What he captures next is chilling. And just what is this thing thrashing in the water? Well, these are more real mermaid sightings deep-sea fishermen can't explain. Do you spot something in the water here? It's hard to see at first, took me a few watches, but here it is slowed down. Keep your eye on the right-hand side of the screen. A creepy humanoid figure breaches the water before slipping back down below and presumably swimming to the left side of the boat because the sailor reacts, moving to the other side trying to keep his eye on the thing. This was supposedly leaked footage from the UK Coast Guard. They've been searching for a man who'd gone overboard. Whatever they spotted here though was clearly not human. The speed of this thing, the way it moves, the glowing eyes, very unsettling. This is a pretty creepy video. It was filmed in what looks like a lake, and I'm not sure where, but a dude is filming himself swimming around in the murky water. He comes up to get some air, and when he dives back down, we hear this loud growling sound. Take a listen to this. And the idea of swimming out in the lake alone and then ducking your head down underwater to see and hear that, yeah, that's a no thank you. And I'd be out of the water so fast, or I'd just have a heart attack and I would drown. Instead, cameraman decides to follow this thing though. Again, it's really effective. The sound here, the murkiness of the water, it just adds some real creep factor to the whole thing. This isn't the type of mermaid video where you're in this beautiful, blue water and it's all gorgeous. This is different. Finally though, the guy comes back up out of the water and we see this. What do you think of this one? Real or hoax? Let us know down in the comments. Can you describe what's going on here? Something's definitely in the water. This video doesn't look doctored to me. As for what it is though, I have no idea. I don't have any info on this clip. I don't know where it was filmed, or I don't know who the original uploader is. People are pretty divided in the comments too. A couple people say it looks like something eating a seal, others say an otter, crocodile, snake, Nessie, and of course, possible mermaid sighting. There are also a lot of comments that are just hearts or like laughing emojis for some reason. Are those the feelings you get watching something weird undulating underwater? Like, oh. People are people okay? This next story comes to us from Reddit from a now deleted user. He worked as a fisherman though, and wrote the following. I've debated posting this for a while. I used to run deep sea charters out of Valdez, mostly halibut and black cod. Commercial and sport. Not much spooks me. I've seen weird lights, heard things I can't explain, but chalked it up to fatigue or whiskey. What happened in 2014 still bothers me. It was just me, an old-timer, Bobby, and a deckhand, Reed. We were about 100 miles offshore. Calm water, overcast skies, quiet. Around 2 a.m., Reed comes up from the stern and says, "You hear that?" We kill the engine, and sure enough, there it is. This faint, echoing singing from somewhere out on the water. A woman's voice, slow and drawn out. It didn't sound recorded, it sounded wet, like it was coming from beneath us. That's when Bobby starts walking toward the edge of the deck, like he's in a daze. I grab his jacket before he leans over. He looks at me like I just woke him up from a dream. Says it felt like someone was humming right next to his ear. The singing stopped after maybe 5 minutes. We didn't say much the rest of the trip. I've worked these waters 20 years. That's the only night I've ever felt like we weren't alone out there. This next video comes out of France. Apparently a diving instructor decided to scrub through security camera footage after hearing something. So we see a woman walk in wearing nothing but a towel. She then dives into the water, pretty normal so far, aside from the fact that the woman kinda reminds me of the ghost girl from The Ring. But then the water starts to bubble and churn, like something's happening under there. And that's when we see the water start overflowing out of the pool. This woman is having quite the swim. And then we cut to security camera down below and see what looks like a webbed hand press up against the glass enclosure. This is a pretty effective video. video. Definitely gets the imagination going. Is it real though? I'm going to go ahead and let you be the judge of that. Next on the list is the cave dive. This video was uploaded to YouTube by Suerte Mal Suerte, who stated that he'd been cave diving in a cenote cave near Cancun when he spotted something that looked a lot like a mermaid. A beautiful piece of footage here, by the way. We watch as he descends into the cave, diving underwater, and as he swims further into the depths, something swims by, right under one of his buddy's feet. Unlike some of the other footage on this list, this one is pretty clear. Hard to look at this creature and see anything else but a mermaid. Is this a woman in a very solid mermaid costume though, or do you think this is genuine? From Ladder Towel 9403 comes a story about an incredibly disturbing fishing trip. I was fishing in a river about 1.5 miles from my grandmother's house. I'd always walked there and fished from the bank where I'd gone since I was young. I was down fishing with my dog Josie, and I was sitting and leaning against a tree. Then my bobber went down hard and my rod almost went out of my hands. I figured I had a bass or catfish. For some reason though, I started following my line as if something was drawing me in. Josie was freaking out, yelling and even biting my leg trying to get me back, but I kept following it almost like I was in a trance. Then something broke the surface of the water right in front of me. All I could see was this torso with a greenish brown head, and I saw its hand, yes, a hand, was pulling my line towards it, and I was so scared but couldn't stop as it continued to pull me closer. Josie was between us, barking and snapping at it, and suddenly I was able to go back towards the bank, leaving everything. I saw it grab Josie, and going for my blade, I cut the line, grabbed Josie, and ran out of the water. I heard a weird slapping sound and a grunt, and I just kept running until I was almost home. Josie was hurt. One of her ears were almost gone. Finally though, I got to the house. I was crying and threw her in the car and went straight to the vet. Still wet and shaking, I told the vet something got her and waited anxiously until he came back and said that she was lucky, that he had extracted a tooth from her skull. He said it looked like an alligator tooth, but I knew better. I never told my family about what happened, but I knew damn well it wasn't an alligator. In 2009, a story came out about a series of mermaid sightings in Israel. The mayor of the small coastal town of Kiryat Yam was offering $1 million to whoever could prove the creature's existence. Now, the sightings didn't start in 2009. There had been reports of a mermaid-like creature for years before, but in the summer of that year, reports had been rising dramatically. The creature would often appear at sunset and perform a few tricks in the water before diving deeper into the depths. One man, Shlomo Cohen, described having spotted it, saying, "I was with friends when suddenly we saw a woman lying on the sand in a weird way. First I thought she was just another sunbather, but when we approached, she jumped into the water and disappeared. We were all in shock because we saw she had a tail." Redditor Cornholio69666, great name, posted their story about almost being dragged under the water by something. They wrote, "I'm living in the Caribbean in Utila, Honduras. Once I was in Neptune's, one of the most virgin beaches here, and I was just swimming, not even diving or snorkeling, and I felt a hand pulling me. And I have long hair to my shoulders. I'm 6'5", so it started pulling my hair. Obviously I panicked, and my two friends were looking at me like, what the F is going on? So I got back to the dock, and then I spot a remora. They have a soft tissue that makes suction, and that's how they cling to sharks and whales. But I've never encountered a fish that pulls down. My friend is a diving instructor, and she got into the water. The remora never got close to her, but it touched my legs, arms, it pulled my hair. My diving instructor friend vouches for my mermaid story, and I believe in them, honestly. And finally, we have the Australian mermaid sighting. Now, despite what you may think about the validity of this piece of footage, you cannot deny how darn beautiful it looks. And not just the supposed mermaid either, the bright blue, the abundance of the marine life, the sound of the water. It's an oddly relaxing video. We've looked at some dark stuff in this list, so this is a nice one to leave on. So our camera person is doing a dive, filming the beautiful waters before panning over to observe something swimming through the water. It looks like your classic mythological mermaid. It has a long fishy tail, and we also briefly see human-looking arms moving gracefully through the water before swimming out of sight deeper into the murkiness of the depths. Whether this was a real mermaid sighting or not, personally I err on the side of yes, but it's a lot of unexplored ocean out there. Whether or not it's a genuine thing, it's pretty cool. I really do hope, that it's real, at the very least. In Okayama Prefecture in Japan, there's a mysterious mummy that's been unsettling people for centuries, and that's because it's supposedly a mermaid mummy. It's about 30 centimeters long, with the upper body of what looks like a human or humanoid, and the lower body of a fish. It still has hair on its head, teeth, nails, and scales, and its face is frozen in what looks like this silent scream, with its hands pulled up toward its mouth. The artifact's been kept at a temple in Asakuchi, where some people worship it. The temple's chief priest compared the mummy to Amabie, a mythical creature that's said to protect people from plagues. Supposedly, it also grants immortality to whoever tastes its flesh. The mummy, I mean, and I'm not sure anyone's been brave enough to try. According to an old note stored with the mummy, it was supposedly caught in a fishing net somewhere off the coast of Tosa province between 1736 and 1741. Over time, it passed through several hands before ending up at the temple. For years, the mummy was displayed in a glass case for visitors, but now it's stored safely in a fireproof box to protect it from falling apart. Just recently though, researchers from Kurashiki University of Science and the Arts, along with some folklore experts, started studying the mummy for the first time. They're using tests like CT scans and DNA analysis to figure out what it's actually made of. Some mermaid mummies in Japan have been proven to be crafted fakes, usually made by stitching together parts of fish and monkeys, but this one hasn't been officially confirmed yet. Hiroshi Kinoshita, who helped launch the project, says it's a chance to explore not just whether it's real, but what it means in Japanese folklore. For more than 50 years, people in Hawaii have claimed to see a mermaid swimming off the coast of Big Island, but the story's usually written off as local legends. That changed in 1998 when a dive boat captain named Jeff Leitcher said he not only saw the creature, but managed to capture it on film. Leitcher, who runs Jack's Diving Locker, was out on April 12, 1998 with 6 other divers about 20 minutes from Hawaii's Kona coast when something strange happened. I'd heard about her before, Leitcher said. Most of us who are out in these waters regularly have heard stories, but I'd never seen her until that morning. While heading out toward Kaiwi Point, a school of dolphins began swimming alongside their boat when one of the crew members suddenly started shouting and pointing at the water. I couldn't believe what I saw. There, not 10 feet from the bow, was what looked like a nude woman, Leitcher said. She had long flowing hair and one of the most beautiful faces I've ever seen. But there's no way a human being could be swimming so fast. She was keeping right up with the dolphins. Leitcher said the creature then jumped out of the water and said the entire lower half of her was, quote, covered with scales and tapered back into a huge fishtail. She jumped once more, then disappeared under the surface. According to Leitcher, all 10 people on the boat saw it as well, but that wasn't the end of it. About an hour later, while diving at the point, Leitcher said he had another close encounter. Suddenly, I felt something brush against my right leg. She shot by me like a streak of lightning, then turned and came back past me, swimming the other way. I just aimed the camera and started snapping pictures. I kept shooting as she broke the surface and swam away. These photos here were later analyzed by 3 separate photography labs, which all concluded that the images had not been altered or tampered with. I feel very lucky that I'm the one to finally prove to the world what people here have known for half a century, Leitcher said. The Kaiwi Point mermaid is real. Back in 2012, Zimbabwe ran into a strange problem at a couple of dam sites. Workers were so scared of mermaids that they just straight up abandoned their posts. Water Resources Minister Sam Sepepa Nkomo explained the situation during a Senate meeting, saying that workers believed mermaids were living in the reservoirs and pulling people underwater. They were so freaked out that they refused to come back. And hey, fair enough. Doesn't sound worth it to me either. There are plenty of jobs that don't involve getting dragged underwater and drowned by mythical creatures. To try and fix the issue though, the government brought in traditional chiefs to perform rituals to get rid of these mermaids. Nkomo said these ceremonies were done to, quote, exorcise mermaids believed to inhabit reservoirs. Now, thinking the problem might just be some local superstition, Nkomo also tried hiring foreign workers, figuring they wouldn't buy into the stories, but even those workers ended up reporting weird sightings and refused to continue the job. Some people, including Nakomo himself, wondered if dangerous water currents might have been to blame here instead of anything supernatural. But whatever the case, the government went ahead with the traditional rituals to calm everyone down, get work moving again. So I have no idea what really went on here, but what a bizarre story. This has become a rather well-known piece of footage taken in 2013 off the coast of Mallorca, Spain. It has some people convinced that a real mermaid was captured on camera that day. A tourist filming from a boat caught something unusual perched on a rocky outcrop near the shore. At first glance, it looks like some kind of sea creature with long fish-like tail, a bluish tint, but what is it doing out of the water? And when you get a closer look, it gets even stranger. The upper body seems oddly human, with 2 arms and a rounded head. At first, it looks motionless, almost like a statue, but then it moves. So what's really going on here? Could this be proof that mermaids exist? Is it an elaborate hoax, some clever CGI, or just someone in a costume? Let us know what you think. This man's seen and heard some very eerie stuff while out on the water. Brian Coleman is a fisherman from New Bedford, Massachusetts, going by Sauce90 on TikTok. He's posted some pretty eerie videos on there, most of them having to do with unsettling things that he sees or hears out at sea late at night. In this first clip, he captures something swimming near the surface of the water at a pretty solid clip, keeping up with the boat. But this next part is where it gets really eerie. It's late at night, and now he starts hearing this haunting cry, almost like a siren's call, coming from somewhere out in the waves.
I hear him. Where's he at? What the f is that noise, bro?
It's cool actually seeing something like this. You really get a sense of why so many sailors back in the day would spin tales of strange encounters they had out at sea, and what they could only assume were ghostly cries of mermaids luring them into the water. If you didn't know any better, that's exactly what you'd probably think too. A lot of commenters say this is most likely the sound of orcas though, but all the same, it's this pretty eerie, haunting sound. Now, fake mermaid videos are a dime a dozen. You see a lot of AI ones these days, a lot of CG ones, but this one is very well done, and it's eerie, it's creepy. I do not like it. Imagine swinging around and feeling something slimy brush over your leg, and then seeing this pale, horrifying looking water ghoul swimming right next to you. Now, I do not think the video is real, but it's creepy all the same. The movement of the water, the quality of the costume, it looks really good. It doesn't look like CG to me. It looks like it's actually someone in a costume, which makes it even more impressive. This took some a bit more dedication, and I don't know where it was filmed, so the mystery behind it just adds to the eeriness. From a fisherman of Reddit comes a wild story of an encounter in Oregon. It goes as follows. This happened a few years ago off the coast of Newport, Oregon. I never know if it's Oregon or Oregon. I hear it pronounced different ways. You locals will have to let me know in the comments. Anyway, continuing on. I was working on a small trawler, a 3-man crew dragging for shrimp about 40 miles out. Around 3 a.m., I'm doing a gear check alone at the stern when I hear a splash. I figure it's a dolphin or maybe a sea lion, nothing unusual out there. But when I shine my light over the side, I catch a flash of something just under the surface. Not a fish, not anything I recognized. It was pale with limbs. Long limbs. Honestly, it looked like a person swimming parallel to the boat, just below the waterline, head tilted up like it was watching me. I couldn't make out a face, just the shape. I called one of the guys over, but by the time he came out, it was gone. He laughed it off, told me I was overtired and fair. I didn't argue, but for the rest of the night, every time I passed the stern, I had this feeling like something was pacing us underwater. I've seen some weird things in trawl nets, but nothing ever gave me that feeling before. We didn't catch much that trip. I didn't sleep. I still don't like working nights after that. Now imagine you're out on the water just fishing, enjoying the day, when suddenly something huge breaches the water. Something like this. Patricia and her fiance Dave were fishing near Sanibel, Florida on October 6th of 2013 when they spotted whatever that was. They said it was at least 20 feet long, cutting through the waves at high speed before breaching the surface and twisting around, almost like it had wrapped itself around something before before vanishing again. The video uploaded to the Residual Payments YouTube channel is unsettling for a couple reasons. First, the movement in the water starts on the left side, and then, out of nowhere, something much further away bursts to the surface. So, what are we looking at here? Is it two creatures? Or worse, is it just one really big, fast-moving animal? Little Mermaid? More like the Chonker Mermaid, the next Disney classic. Now, what really sells the footage is the reaction from Patricia and Dave. You can hear them in the background, and they sound genuinely freaked out. These aren't tourists mistaking a dolphin for a monster. They're Florida natives who've spent their whole lives around the water, and they were adamant that this thing was not a dolphin or a manatee. Whatever they saw that day left them completely baffled. Back in 1842, a man named P.T. Barnum, now remembered as the king of circus hoaxes, showed off something he was calling the Fiji Mermaid at his American Museum in New York. Burnham described it himself as an ugly, dried-up, black-looking, diminutive specimen, giving it the appearance of having died in great agony. Well, sign me up. People just lined up like crazy to see this thing, a shriveled little corpse with a fish tail and a bony humanoid torso. For a while, people thought they were staring at the remains of a real mermaid. But it turns out this was stitched together by Japanese fishermen, basically the upper half of a monkey sewn to the lower half of a fish. But here's what's pretty interesting. Even after Burnham admitted it was fake, people kept showing up. It worked because they just wanted to believe. I mean, plus, that just sounds like a wild thing to see in person. Versions of the Fiji Mermaid still pop up today in Ripley's museums and roadside sideshows, sometimes made from turtles, sometimes stuffed with paper and glue, but that creepy, janky look is always the same. P.T. Barnum's mermaid took a very old Japanese tradition and brought it to the West, kicking off a whole wave, see what I did there, of mermaid obsession over here. This tiny stitched up thing ended up shaping what a lot of us picture when we hear the words mermaid skeleton. In 2012, this odd looking thing was displayed at the Danish National Museum. It looked like the skeleton of a mermaid. Human bones up top, a long tail instead of legs. There was also a plaque by the display with a very official scientific sounding name, Hydronymphus pesky, like this was some long-lost species that had finally been discovered. And for a while, people actually thought it might be legit. The whole thing was actually built by an artist named Millet Rude. It's not entirely fake though. She did use real human bones for the top half. It gives it some authenticity for sure. The tail she made herself though, and she did a damn good job because it looks pretty convincing to me. And then it ended up touring around galleries and zoos, and people kept taking pictures and calling this proof of mermaids. Even now, images of the display are still shared around online, and without context, some swear it's real. It's not, it's just a really good art piece that fooled a lot of people. This isn't the only time Denmark's had a weird encounter with mermaid bones, though. Speaking of mermaid skeletons showing up in odd places, take a look at this. A lot of Copenhagen locals were pretty surprised to see a skeleton with a fishtail while strolling along the waterfront, especially because they're used to seeing this. So one of the most famous tourist spots in Copenhagen is the Little Mermaid statue. It's a small bronze sculpture, only about 4 feet tall, made by Erik Erikson, and based on Hans Christian Andersen's famous fairy tale, The Little Mermaid. The statue's been sitting on a rock by the harbor since 1913, and millions of people have visited, taken photos with it, and called it a national treasure. But in 2010, something unusual happened. The statue was temporarily moved to Shanghai to be part of the Danish pavilion at the World Expo. It stayed there for months from March to November, which left her rock back in Copenhagen completely empty. That's when someone came up with a funny idea. On April 1st, 2010, a mermaid skeleton suddenly appeared near the statue's usual spot. It was sitting in the same pose as the original statue, and for 2 hours people gathered and took photos, entertained but confused and maybe even a little creeped out. I mean, did some wacko attach a fishtail to a human skeleton and put it out on display as some sick joke? Well, kinda. These were actually human bones from the hips up attached to the tail of a swordfish. It was made a few years earlier as part of a museum exhibit about mythical creatures. The prank was put together by Hans Strager, who was the head of exhibitions at the time. Got tons of attention and became one of the most talked about mermaid sightings in Denmark. Around 2011, photos started popping up online of what looked like a pale, half-decayed mermaid corpse lying on the banks of the Vladaya River in Bulgaria. People went wild over this. Headlines screaming "mermaid found" were all over social media, and it makes sense. I mean, if you randomly came across these images at a time before AI could just render stuff like this in 20 seconds, you'd probably do a double take. The thing looked freaky, scaly skin, webbed fingers, and that ghostly, pale look with a human-ish shape. Not only that, but it just looked a little too real. But this was actually a super detailed movie prop. The figure was eventually traced back to a man named Joel Harlow, the special effects artist behind Pirates of the Caribbean. It turns out he'd made this mermaid corpse for the films. Somehow, it ended up in the river though. Whether as a prank or entirely by accident, no one's really sure. In the summer of 2019, people hanging out on the beach in Worthing, England spotted something strange leaning against one of the wooden barriers that break up the shoreline. From a distance, it looked like a human skeleton, but the legs were fused together like a tail. Up close, you could see the ribcage and skull looked pretty real. A man named Ben Merchant was one of the first to spot the thing and snapped a photo of it. For a few hours, it had everyone staring and wondering if this thing had actually washed up from the sea. Well, once again, this was an art piece made by local sculptor Rosie Lee. She'd been given part of a skeleton and asked to turn it into something eye-catching, so she created the tail and posed the bones to mimic a mermaid. It didn't fool any scientists, but it still creeped a few people out. Now, just what exactly is this sound? It was recorded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, in 1991, and to this day nobody knows what it is, so, I mean, it's gotta be mermaids, right? The upsweep is one of those deep-sea mysteries that scientists still haven't been able to fully explain. What's cool is that unlike other weird ocean sounds that were only picked up once, the upsweep's been recorded every year since 1991. It seems to follow a seasonal pattern, getting louder during certain times of the year and then fading. But even after decades of listening, no one's been able to figure out exactly where it's coming from. Some researchers think it could be connected to volcanic activity deep under the ocean, but some others wonder if the sound might actually be coming from some unknown sea creature we haven't discovered yet. We always hear vague stories about mermaid sightings way back in the day, but do we have any specific accounts? Well, yes, quite a bit actually. In 1603, for example, a farmer named Thomas Reynolds saw what looked like a mermaid in the water off the coast of Wales near Pendine. He called over other people, and together they watched the creature for about 3 hours. According to their description, the creature was partly human with the upper body of a woman, but from the waist down it looked like a fish. A man named William Saunders, another local, took the time to carefully examine what Reynolds and the other witnesses had seen. He listened to their stories and found their accounts believable enough to document everything. In fact, the sighting was taken seriously enough that in 1604, just a year later, the story showed up in the paper, along with an illustration to show what they described. The mermaid was recorded as a, quote, monstrous fish that appeared in the form of a woman from her waist upward. A guy in South Africa claimed to have spotted a mermaid-like creature in 2008 in the small village of Surbrak. A man named Daniel Cupido and his mother Dina were near the river around 11:30 at night when they heard a loud banging noise. Cupido said it sounded like someone bashing on a wall, so he went to check it out, and when he got closer, Cupido said he saw something strange thrashing. He described the figure as looking like a, quote, white woman with long black hair thrashing about in the water. Concerned, he tried to help, but as he approached, the creature let out this strange sound that his mother said was so sorrowful her heart couldn't take it anymore. Some believe that what they saw that night may have been what's called a caiman, and I don't mean like caiman like the alligator type animal. The caiman is said to be a half-human, half-fish creature that lives in deep river pools. Surbrak tourism officer Maggie Gentry supported the group's story too, saying she personally knew the witnesses and made it clear that they were not people who drank heavily or made up stories. She said she trusted their word and believed that they genuinely saw something that night. Between 1887 and 1913, people along the coast of Deerness and the Orkney Islands kept spotting something strange in the water. Dozens of people, farmers, fishermen, and tourists reported seeing the same thing over and over. The creature became known as the Deer Nest Mermaid. One witness described it like this: "It is about 6 to 7 feet in length, has a little black head with neck, a snow-white body and 2 arms, and in swimming it just appears like a human being. At times it will appear to be siding on a sunken rock and will wave and work its hands." Sightings like this became so frequent in the summer that it pretty much became a part of the local culture. People even wrote plays about it. And then in 1913, off the southeastern coast of Hawaii, another group had their own run-in with something that matched the same description. A fisherman named Ralph Taylor and his crew saw what they thought was a mermaid while checking their lobster pots. Taylor described the account as follows: "It rose out of the water to the height of 3 feet and looked like a lady with a shawl round her shoulders and streaming down her face." The ningen is a mysterious sea creature that people in Japan have reported seeing over the last several years, and it sounds a little bit like a mermaid. Not the beautiful mermaid we all think of, but a mermaid-like creature. Ningen is said to live in the icy waters of the Antarctic and is described as completely white, human-shaped, and can grow up to 20 to 30 meters long. Witnesses say the creature sometimes has arms, legs, 5-fingered hands, fins, tails. One sighting came from a whale research ship. First, the crew thought they were looking at a foreign submarine, but when they got closer, realized what they were actually looking at was a living creature, which quickly disappeared back under the water. In November of 2007, MU Magazine published a Google Earth screenshot that seemed to capture the ningen in the South Atlantic Ocean. There have been rumors that the Japanese government keeps detailed records of ningen sightings, but hasn't made any of them public.
In 2005, a team of commercial divers working off the coast of Baranof Island in Alaska reportedly encountered something terrifying while performing maintenance on deep-sea pipeline. According to a declassified safety report from the contractor, 2 divers surfaced early, shaken and refusing to go back down. One claimed he saw a quote human face with gills staring at him from a crevice in a rock. They described the creature as having webbed hands, reflective eyes, and scales that shimmered in their flashlight beams. Locals weren't surprised. In fact, some Inuit legends speak of sea people who dwell near that exact region. They even have a name: the Kalupalik, mermaid-like beings that lure people underwater with a hum you can only hear when submerged. High up on the windswept cliffs of the Faroe Islands, a remote chain in the North Atlantic, there is a cave that few people dare enter. Inside are carvings, ancient ones, etched into the rock. They clearly depict human-fish hybrids drawn with long hair, webbed hands, and tails. According to local historians, these markings predate Christian influence in the area and may have been created by Norse explorers. But here's the twist. One panel shows what appears to be a mermaid holding a dead man's head. Creepy? Absolutely. But archaeologists can't deny the authenticity, and some believe the site was a ritual space used to ask protection from sea spirits during voyages. These weren't just artistic depictions, they were warnings. In 2013, an offshore oil rig operating in the Gulf of Mexico experienced a strange sonar reading. Something large, fast, and warm-blooded was circling the base of the platform. Assuming it was a shark, divers went to inspect the structure, but returned reporting, quote, something strange watching us from the shadows. One diver swore he saw a pale-skinned human-like figure swimming against the current with almost no effort. He said it had no breathing apparatus, yet it was moving at least 60 feet down. Internal emails from the rig, later leaked online, referred to it as, quote, the Mermaid incident. No formal statement was ever released, and the crew involved were reassigned shortly after. Most people think of the Fiji mermaid as a 19th century hoax, an ugly little thing that turned out to be a monkey sewn to a fish. But here's what most people don't know. There were dozens of reports of similar creatures in the South Pacific long before it became a circus attraction. Fishermen from the islands have passed down stories for generations of a creature with glowing eyes and silver fins that comes to surface during storms. Some researchers believe the quote original Fiji mermaid shown by P.T. Barnum may have been a poorly preserved copy of something real because other specimens that looked nearly identical were reportedly destroyed by British colonists trying to quote clean up native beliefs. In 1978, a geologist hiking near Iceland stumbled across a strange fossil embedded in a rock wall. It looked like a partial skeleton, with a humanoid rib cage, scaled lower limbs, and elongated finger bones. He turned it over to the University of Iceland for study, and then it vanished. To this day, only photographs remain. Some experts suggested it was a hoax or misidentified fish bones, but the proportions didn't match any known marine species. What's stranger is that mermaid sightings are extremely common in Icelandic folklore, especially in that region. Locals believe that fossil was proof of an evil sea witch believed to lure sailors into whirlpools and drown them.
Holy crap, this thing is terrifying. I mean, I think I'd rather come across just about anything else washed up on the beach than this. Surprisingly, this freakish looking thing actually showed up on eBay. It isn't listed on there anymore. These photos were shared way back in 2006, but someone bid on this thing. There were so many stories floating around about these mysterious images at the time. Some stories went that the creature was found in Mexico, others said South Africa, the Philippines, the list goes on. But apparently someone came across this thing while exploring Fort de Soto Beach at the southern end of St. Petersburg, Florida. At least that's what the online auction said. Just keep it the hell away from me. In July of 2023, a woman named Bobby Lee Oates was driving along Keppel Sands in Queensland, Australia, looking for a place to camp when something weird caught her eye on the beach. It was this decayed, half-buried skeleton with a long, stretched-out tail and what looked like a human skull sitting right at the top. She snapped some photos and described it as exactly like a mermaid shape. The ribs were showing, the limbs were mostly gone, but the way the bones were laid out, it really did look like some creepy, washed-up sea creature. And when the images hit the internet, they went viral. Some thought it might have been a kangaroo leg stretched out and mangled by the ocean. Others said it looked like a badly decomposed dolphin or seal. Marine experts eventually stepped in and said, yeah, it was probably just one of those, just a gross beached carcass, but until this day, we still don't know exactly what this thing was. So technically, we can't rule out mermaids altogether. In 2006, locals in a small town in Malaysia came across this tiny, dried-up mermaid mummy about a foot long. It had a shriveled face, little arms, and a tail. In 2014, another one appeared, this time in Papua New Guinea. Almost identical, leathery skin, tiny claws, and that unmistakable mermaid tail. Once again, these were your classic carnival props. The mummies were made by stitching a smaller mammal or monkey's torso onto a fishtail, then drying the whole thing out to look old and mummy-like. These fake mermaids were all over Southeast Asia in the 19th and early 20th centuries, sold to curious tourists and local curiosities collectors. No DNA tests or CT scans have been done on these particular ones, but based on what we know, they're pretty much exactly the same kind of monkey-fish hybrids that P.T. Barnum used in his sideshows. This video was filmed right after a hurricane. We watch as the person holding the camera walks along a beach covered in fallen trees and debris. Then they spot something strange washed up on the sand. At first glance, looks like a big dead fish, but as the camera gets closer, you notice there's hair on it. The person filming keeps moving in and we get a better look. This looks to be a gnarly, mummified mermaid. And not the beautiful, magical version we like to imagine. To be fair, none of the entries on this list really have been. At best, they've been skeleton bones, and at the worst, they've been freakish looking monsters. Now, sure, we've already established that something like this could be faked, and you probably shouldn't need me to tell you that, but if this is a hoax, it's pretty well done. One of the top comments on the video from user Cajun2197 says, I have seen real mummies. This looks frighteningly real. The skin pulled back around the mouth as it dried, bulging eyes, taut cheekbones, the ribs and pelvis under dark, dried flesh. The fins brittle, exactly like a dead fish drying in the sun. In a temple in Okayama, Japan, there's this tiny 12-inch mermaid that people thought had been caught in a fishing net sometime between 1736 and 1741. It's kept in a box, sometimes displayed in a glass case. The legend goes that eating the flesh could make you live forever. But scientists from Kurashiki University CT scanned it and found almost no real bones inside. The torso is mostly cloth, paper, cotton, even sand and charcoal snorkel held together by metal pins. On the surface, they did find fish skin and mammal hair, pufferfish parts on the arms, and the jaw and teeth from a predatory fish, plus claws that looked like they came from a lizard. The CT scans showed clear wooden stakes running through it to keep the shape intact, but it's still pretty cool, because it is an old artifact. Radiocarbon dating says it probably dates to the late 1800s.
Imagine you've been at sea for months. You're dehydrated, sunburned, and slowly losing your grip on reality. Then, suddenly, you spot a figure rising from the waves. Long arms, a rounded face, and what looks like a tail sliding beneath the surface. You've just seen a mermaid. Or so you think. In reality, you've met a manatee. Christopher Columbus himself wrote about encountering mermaids in the Caribbean in 1493, though he admitted they were, quote, not as beautiful as they are painted. Harsh, but understandable. Manatees are large, gentle marine mammals that can grow over 13 feet long and weigh more than 1,000 pounds. But when they float upright to breathe, cradle their young, and glance towards a ship, it's not hard to see why sailors, hyped up on rum and desperation, thought they'd found something magical. It's one of the clearest examples of myth meeting biology. If the manatee is the mermaid of the Atlantic, the dugong is her cousin in the Indian Ocean. These guys are smaller, more streamlined relatives of manatees, and they've also played a major role in mermaid lore across Southeast Asia, East Africa, and even Australia. What's eerie is how these guys nurse their babies. They do it upright, so if you're watching from a boat, it looks like a human woman holding a child while floating in the sea. Add long, flipper-like arms and a tail that tapers like the classic mermaid fin, and the illusion becomes downright spooky. Ancient cave paintings and oral traditions from Malaysia and Papua New Guinea depict sea women that match these guys' anatomy almost exactly. There's even evidence that early sailors created fertility charms modeled after them, thinking they'd witnessed a sacred being. Turns out mermaids might have had tusks and whiskers this whole time. It has the body of an eel, the head of a dragon, and teeth like a medieval torture device. Meet the frilled shark, one of the most bizarre and ancient creatures still swimming in the oceans today. This deep-sea predator can grow over 6 feet long and really hasn't changed much in over 80 million years. When it surfaces, which is rare, it sends shivers down the spine. Its gaping jaws are filled with over 300 needle-like teeth arranged in rows, and its body moves in snake-like waves, exactly the kind of horror that fuels darker mermaid legends. In Celtic and Scandinavian folklore, there are stories of sea maidens with sharp teeth who lured fishermen to their deaths. Japanese Ningyo tales describe mermaids with a grotesque face and a body like a serpent. Many of these descriptions match the frilled shark far more closely than the romanticized Disney version that we're used to. It's the kind of creature that makes you wonder if sailors are seeing mermaids or monsters. You're floating in calm waters when suddenly a massive silver ribbon glides beneath your boat. It's over 30 feet long, has glowing fins, and moves like it's dancing. That's not your imagination. That's an oarfish. These rare deep-sea dwellers are the longest bony fish in the ocean and live thousands of feet below the surface. But when they're sick or dying, they float upward, and that's when humans get a glimpse. Ancient sightings of sea serpents off the coasts of Norway, Greece, and even the Pacific Islands often describe shimmering finned creatures with a crown-like head. That matches the oarfish almost perfectly. In Japanese folklore, oarfish are known as messengers from the sea god's palace, and their appearance is believed to predict earthquakes. Some Pacific Island legends also talk about sea queens, or glowing maidens, who rise before disaster. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you see the oarfish in motion, it's easy to understand how one fish could launch 1,000 mermaid stories. Alright, so technically not a sea creature, but stick with me, the axolotl might be one of the strangest and most mythical animals on Earth. Found only in the ancient lakes and canals of Mexico, these little amphibians have gills like feathery crowns, wide eyes, and permanently smiling faces. They also have the rare ability to regenerate entire limbs and even parts of their brain. To the Aztecs, the axolotl wasn't just an animal, it was a god. They believed it was the transformation of Xolotl, the twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, who turned himself into a water creature to escape sacrifice. The word axolotl even translates to water dog or water spirit. In Mesoamerican mermaid folklore, there are stories of guild women who live in sacred lakes and healed the sick. It's easy to imagine a culture encountering a glowing, smiling, regenerating water creature and building entire legends around it. In fact, many locals still believe axolotls bring luck and that harming one invites a curse. That's a lot of weight for one little smiling amphibian. During the Cold War, Soviet submarines patrolling near the Sea of Japan recorded something bizarre on their sonar. What sounded like high-pitched singing, followed by multiple fast-moving underwater objects surrounding their vessel. At first, the crew believed it was a foreign sub, but no signatures matched known technology. One sonar technician described the singing as, quote, almost human, but not quite. Years later, after the fall of the USSR, some of these logs were leaked to independent researchers. Many now believe the Soviets may have encountered the same mysterious beings that Pacific Island cultures describe as sea sisters, a group of female spirits or creatures who travel in pods, warning or punishing those who disturb the ocean. Off the island of Vis, off the Croatian coast, sailors have long spoken of sea girls who appear in the moonlight singing to fishermen. And in 2016, something strange happened. A group of night fishermen swore they saw 3 long-haired women sitting on coastal rocks. They were naked, appeared to shimmer in the moonlight, and vanished into the sea when approached. Initially laughed off by the public, the story gained traction when cell phone footage surfaced, brief and grainy, but showing 3 glowing shapes diving in unison. Marine biologists later confirmed the video showed, quote, no known animal behavior, and that area is now unofficially off limits to small boats at night. This one isn't a legend, it's actually a scientific theory with some strange implications. The aquatic ape hypothesis suggests that a branch of human evolution may have adapted to life in the water, developing traits like subcutaneous fat, breath control, and even partial webbing between fingers and toes. Mainstream science largely rejects it, but here's the strange part. People in remote coastal areas from Indonesia to Mozambique describe sightings of humanoid creatures with those exact features. Webbed hands, smooth hairless bodies, exceptional swimming speed. Could these be descendants of a lost evolutionary branch? Some anthropologists aren't laughing anymore, especially after scuba divers found handprints in underwater caves far deeper than any known human could reach without modern gear. In 1830s Louisiana, newspapers ran with a bizarre story. A fishwoman had been spotted multiple times along the banks of the Mississippi River near Baton Rouge. Witnesses described a creature with long black hair, pale skin, and fish-like lower limbs. The sightings caused panic, people refused to bathe or fish in the river, and boat captains rerouted cargo trips. What's wild is that these stories didn't go away. In 1842, a letter to the editor in the New Orleans Bee referenced an aquatic woman with haunting eyes spotted again, and even blamed her for a sunken steamboat. While no physical evidence ever surfaced, the consistency and fear surrounding these sightings make them stand out among American mermaid lore. In 2021, a team of researchers studying glacial melt near Greenland dropped a deep-sea camera into a subglacial cave. What they captured shocked them. A figure, upright, bipedal, but unmistakably aquatic. This creature hovered in the background for several seconds before darting away. The footage was dismissed by officials as, quote, distorted data, but the researchers who collected it told a different story in private. According to them, they reviewed the raw footage frame by frame and watched as the figure turned its head toward the camera, revealing wide-set eyes and thin gill slits. They called them shadow divers, beings that exist on the edge of where life should be possible. And if you ask them off the record, they'll say that we are not alone down there.
This next one's kinda sad, because it's a dead mermaid, or at least it could be. Folks aren't really sure what this thing is, to be honest, but it certainly creeped out a lot of people. Just back in July of 2023, mysterious remains washed ashore on an Australian beach, along the shores of Keppel Sands, Queensland. A local named Bobby Lee Oates stumbled on these skeletal remains that have not been definitively identified. But what a lot of folks online started commenting was that these skeletal remains had almost mermaid-like features, describing the find as approximately 6 feet in length, with a human-shaped skull, an elongated jawline, and distinctive hair reminiscent of a cow or kangaroo, albeit with a lot of decomposition. Oates shared her findings with the Marine Biology Facebook group. The remains also appeared to possess a tail or limb of some kind. Rob DeVille, an expert from the UK Cetacean Strandings Investigation Program, cautiously weighed in on these images, saying that the possibility of it being the remains of a small cetacean species was high, but he couldn't fully confirm because of his unfamiliarity with the typical marine life in the area, and, of course, just how decomposed the thing was. One of the scariest versions of the mermaid myth has to be the ningen, a creature that people in Japan have actually reported seeing over the past few years. So in recent years, rumors have spread in Japan about mysterious humanoid creatures known as ningen, which are said to live in the icy waters of the Antarctic. These creatures are said to be completely white and can grow between 20 to 30 meters long. Witnesses have described them having a human-like shape with arms, legs, and sometimes even 5-fingered hands. Some say they have fins or tails, kinda like mermaids, or tentacles. In one sighting, the crew of a whale research ship thought they saw a foreign submarine, but when they got closer, they realized that what they were actually looking at was a living creature, which quickly vanished underwater. Then in November of 2007, an issue of MU magazine included a Google Earth screenshot that seemed to show one in the South Atlantic Ocean. The Japanese government has been rumored to be keeping detailed records of sightings, but of course, they haven't released any information to the public. Eyewitnesses are reportedly instructed to stay silent. From Reddit user OldSupermarket5657 comes a tale I'm going to call the Lightning Mermaid, and goes as follows. In 2021, I was in Montego Bay, Jamaica. I was sitting on the beach alone during a silent lightning storm at night, and all of a sudden I felt this intense urge to run into the water. Mind you, I don't swim. After a while, the urge intensified, and I stupidly went to put my feet in the water. I remember the water was bubbling and it was pitch black, and I immediately felt this sense of dread and danger and ran back out of the water. After getting out, I went back to sit down on my folding chair, and out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning lit up the sky and the sea, and I saw a big black figure with long hair not too far away from me, just staring at me from the water. After the lightning was gone, the figure was nowhere to be found. I sat there for a half an hour trying to figure out what I'd just seen, but it never happened again. I really believe that it was a mermaid trying to take me out into the sea. Next up is a very creepy piece of footage. Again, this is a mermaid carcass, or at least that's really what it looks like. The footage was taken after a hurricane. We watch as our camera person walks along a beach, trees and debris are scattered across the sand, but then the camera lands on something fishy having washed ashore. At first it looks like it's just a large fish, but the longer you look at it, you realize there's a head of hair on it. Our brave cameraman walks closer to the beached creature, and we see what looks to be a mummified mermaid. It has bony human-looking arms and, most horrifyingly, a human-looking head. Again, very grotesque and mummified. This is probably not how you'd like to imagine coming across a mythical creature. Now, of course, something like this could be faked. Special effects prosthetics are pretty convincing sometimes, but even if it is faked, it's very well done. One of the top comments in the video posted by Cajun2197 states the following: "I've seen real mummies. This looks frighteningly real. The skin pulled back around the mouth as it dried, bulging eyes, taut cheekbones, the ribs and pelvis under dark dried flesh, the fins brittle, exactly like a dead fish dying in the sun." There was another video by someone else filming this creature when it was less decomposed. The arm was more intact and the cheek was not rotting out. Now, if this is fake, someone went to a great deal of trouble to do this. And why? What I find interesting about that comment, aside from the description of how realistic this thing looks, is that someone else also filmed this thing. That means the person filming this video may have not been involved with the hoax, if it is indeed a hoax. Pretty interesting video, but again, What do you all think?
Picture a fish-like creature that washes up on shore with glowing scales, a monkey-like mouth, and hauntingly human eyes. It sounds made up, right? In Japan, this being is called the Ningyo, and it's part of local folklore for centuries. Some versions of the story say that eating its flesh grants immortality, but also comes with a terrifying curse. But here's where things get strange. Some historians and researchers believe these stories may have stemmed from real sightings of grotesque deep-sea animals like the stargazer fish, which buries itself in sand with its upward-facing, human-like eyes exposed. Others think fishermen stumbled upon rotting specimens of rarely seen species, mistook them for supernatural beings, and preserved them. In fact, some preserved Ningyo mummies still exist in Japanese temples. They're disturbing, misshapen hybrids, usually stitched together from fish and monkey parts, but the devotion they've received over the years suggests people really believed they were once alive. Whether hoax, hybrid, or hallucination, the Ningyo legend might just be the creepiest mermaid origin story of all. If you've ever walked along a beach and found a small black pouch with curled tendrils at each corner, congratulations, you found a mermaid's purse. At least that's what folklore called them. In truth, they're the egg cases of sharks, skates, and rays. But for centuries, no one knew that. Old mariners believed these mysterious, leathery pods were literal mermaid eggs. Some said they'd fallen off a mermaid as she climbed onto the rocks. Others claimed finding one meant a sea maiden was nearby spying on humans. In Celtic and Norse legends, these purses were seen as omens, either blessings or curses, depending on the tide and where they were found. It wasn't until marine biology advanced in the 19th century that scientists figured out that these were actually baby shark nurseries. But the nickname mermaid's purse stuck, and to this day, many kids grow up calling them that. It's one of those rare cases where a myth and a scientific fact overlap, because the ocean never gives up its secrets all at once. Okay, this one's gonna sound weird. Sea cucumbers are basically squishy blobs that crawl along the ocean floor, but in several Pacific Island and Southeast Asian legends, they're not just sea slugs, they're shapeshifters. In Polynesian myth, there are tales of sea beings that could morph into women, walk on land, seduce fishermen, and then slip back into the sea as a boneless creature. It sounds like fantasy, but here's where it gets interesting. Some species of sea cucumber can eject their internal organs when threatened and then regrow them. Others can liquefy their bodies and slide through tiny crevices. Early sailors, unfamiliar with these bizarre defense mechanisms, believed sea cucumbers were magical or cursed. In Micronesia, elders speak of ocean spirits with bodies that, quote, melted into the waves. It's not hard to connect the dots between a regenerating, shape-shifting sea creature and the more bizarre mermaid myths. This is nature playing its weirdest cards, and humans, as always, turning those cards into stories. Now imagine it's nighttime. The fog rolls in, the only sound is the gentle lapping of waves until a guttural, human-like wail echoes from the rocks. You're not hallucinating. That scream? It's an elephant seal. Northern elephant seals are massive. Males can grow over 4,000 pounds, and they make some of the eeriest sounds in the animal kingdom. During mating season, they bellow and howl in ways that are disturbingly close to human cries. Early explorers along the California and Alaskan coasts described seeing, quote, grotesque mermaids on the shore, bloated bodies, long faces, wide eyes. Many of these reports likely described elephant seals in the middle of a fight or mating display. There are also Inuit stories of sea women with tragic voices who lured hunters too far from land. Some of those tales might have been inspired by real-life encounters with these beasts. It's a reminder that sometimes the creepiest mermaids aren't graceful or seductive, they are loud, aggressive, and built like a refrigerator with flippers. Our final creature might be the least mermaid-like, but it also might be the most terrifying. The deep-sea anglerfish looks like a demon from a nightmare. The females are huge compared to the males, they have bioluminescent lures growing from their heads, and mouths lined with translucent, inward-pointing teeth. They live over a mile deep in the ocean, so deep that sunlight doesn't reach them, and when they rise towards the surface, usually only when dead or dying, they are absolutely horrifying to witness. I'm sure we all remember the anglerfish that went viral on TikTok earlier this year. I miss her. Some siren legends from Greece and West Africa mention sea women who glowed in the dark, hypnotized sailors with strange lights, and devoured men whole. Sound a little familiar? Scientists didn't get a full view of a live anglerfish until the early 2000s. Before that, all we had were creepy, half-rotted specimens. Imagine one of those washing up on shore in the Middle Ages. You'd absolutely think it was a demon or a sea witch. In a way, anglerfish are the purest proof that the ocean has always been full of creatures so bizarre, so alien that our minds did what they always do, turn them into myths. Sauce90 is a TikToker who just so happens to work on these giant boats in the ocean. Now, he's had a lot of terrifying encounters with some sort of creatures out there, and many think these creatures are mermaids or sirens. Now, he recorded a video with two creatures swimming on either side of the huge ship. Now, they were moving very quickly, keeping up the pace, which is honestly insane. He knew that they weren't dolphins or anything and asked people for help in identifying them, and a lot of people speculated, hey, these could be mermaids. Then there was another video he made with these same two swimming creatures, and they were making the strangest noises ever. Now, this made people think that they were sirens, as sirens are said to sing songs to hypnotize sailors and make them go into the water. Now, the noises are truly unsettling, and in one clip you can hear one of them say, "Jump for me." I would go back inside the boat and never come out again, because again, that is just terrifying and freaky and makes me think that they're evil. Then there was the mermaid story from Tony Woods. Tony is a comedian, but I can promise you he wasn't joking about any of this. Now, when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he explained that he had seen a mermaid, or what he calls a merman, in real life in Seychelles, Africa. He was with a little French boy, and people in the community said don't swim in the lagoon after dark. He then said that there was a lot of people at the bar and that he and the boy raced down to the lagoon, which they were warned about, but they didn't listen. While down there, they saw something swimming fast and it then jumped out of the water. He said it was at least 10 to 12 feet long and made eye contact with him. Now, obviously, the pair got scared and went back to the bar where everyone was, but no one believed them. The boy's mother apologized, saying he had an overactive imagination, but Tony swears that he saw this creature too. He said it wasn't a mermaid, but a merman, that it had dark skin and was half human, half fish. His head was humanoid, eyes were so big. Now, Tony says he's not the only one to have seen something like that in the area, which makes him believe what he saw was even more real. And I mean, the way that he tells this story, the body language, the inflection, it just feels so real to me. And we do know that there have been multiple sightings in Africa of mermaids, and all I can say is at least Tony had a witness with him when he saw what he saw, but wow, what a crazy story. And then a user on Reddit told this story that is absolutely terrifying. They said that they saw a mermaid once in 2004 when they were in Jamaica. They were at a bridge called Flat Bridge, which is known for its mermaid sightings. Now, they decided to go close to the water, and as they got closer, they saw a woman resting beside a rock. They described her as having her hair being red and her skin very dark. Now, as they got closer, they realized that she was a fishy type of woman with dark eyes. Now, this obviously scared the user, and they said they almost passed out from fear. They then screamed "mermaid" over and over and over again, and the creature became scared and swam away really fast. Now, the user thought that they were going crazy, but spoke to the locals, who told them that mermaids do exist and that it's normal in Jamaica. They then said not to get too close or the mermaids could take you underwater. And yeah, I think I'd have the same reaction as this person, because that is terrifying. Mermaids are real. Don't believe me? Well, what about this recent sighting in Australia? I mean, a mermaid literally washed up on a beach there. In July 2023, photos of a creature resembling a mermaid alien washed ashore on an Australian beach. Now, the image came to light via a post in the Marine Biology Facebook group, and it was exactly like a mermaid shape, said uploader Bobby Lee Oates, 34, of the skeletal remains, which she stumbled across while walking along the beach in Couple Sands, Queensland. We were driving along the beach looking for a campsite, and we couldn't help but notice how much the skull looked to be in the shape of a human, she recalled. So we instantly stopped from the confusion as to what the hell this could be, and why does this look like a human skull. Now Bobby Lee, who estimated that the creature was 6 feet long, described it by saying it had a human-shaped skull with an elongated jawline, and hair similar to the color of a cow or kangaroo, but with hair missing in many places due to decomposition. She continued by saying it was exactly like a mermaid shape, but hairy, because it seemed to have a tail or limb of some sort. Now she posted the image to try to figure out what the creature was, but never got a definitive answer. So could this be some sort of mermaid? I think so. Now onto the Israel sighting. In 2009, dozens of locals near Kiryat Yam, Israel, claimed to see a mermaid off the shore at sunset. Now these sightings went on for some time before the local media got involved. The onlookers said the creature resembled a young girl and would often visit the beach and do tricks in the water. Eventually, the Israeli government noticed all the attention and issued a $1 million reward for anyone who could provide proof of the mermaid. Now this didn't include capturing, it simply required an authentic photo. Now no one ever came forward, but in 2013, the most compelling piece of evidence to date was a video shot by 2 tourists. Now the pair thought they had spotted a seal on a rock just off the coast, but as the camera zoomed in, it became clear it wasn't a seal. It was a mermaid. Now despite the evidence looking real, the prize money has not yet been handed out, but hey, that footage looks real to me. Give those people their money, it's only fair. Let's discuss the Zimbabwe sighting. Mermaids don't really like being around humans, and I can't say that I blame them. Now this was made extremely clear in the case of the Zimbabwe dam workers in 2012, who were trying to install a water pump which was crucial to the local agriculture. Now local divers and workers were hired to see what was blocking the pump, and when they surfaced, they vowed to never return. Why? Because there was a mermaid there. Sam Sipia Nkoma, a water resource minister, told the Senate committee that the village chiefs could perform an ancient ritual to get rid of the mermaid and calm the workers' anxiety, but they still refused to return after the ritual was performed. Now being skeptical of the workers' reasons for quitting, the government hired outside help as they thought this belief was cultural, but the new workers reported the same thing and refused to finish the repairs. Now to this day, the dam is still not finished. And hey, I wouldn't mess with a mermaid either. I think it's best that they left it alone. Next up, we have the Hawaii sighting. The island of Hawaii has plenty of folklore and legends around beautiful aquatic creatures, and the mermaid is one of them. For more than 50 years, people have reported seeing a mermaid off the coast of Hawaii's Big Island. But the sightings were never taken seriously until a dive boat captain finally captured the half-woman, half-fish on camera. Dive master Jeff Liker photographed the creature known as the Kauai Point Mermaid on April 12, 1998, as he and 6 other divers were exploring the ocean bottom about 20 minutes off Hawaii's sunny Kona coast. As Jeff was photographing some underwater life, a mermaid brushed up against him while swimming and turned back around just in time for him to snap a few pictures. He said, "I feel very lucky that I'm the one to finally prove to the world what people here have known for half a century. The Kauai Point Mermaid is real." Now, this wasn't the only time he spotted the mermaid, as just a few hours before, he saw what looked like a nude woman swimming with a pod of dolphins. The woman was able to keep up the pace with the dolphins, which Jeff thought was odd. All of a sudden, she jumped into the air and he realized that she had the lower half of a fish. Now 10 people on a boat witnessed this incident, but the mermaid disappeared after just 2 jumps out of the water. And lastly, we have the Minnesota sighting. A mysterious video claims to show the moment a mermaid was pulled from the water, prompting claims the mythical creatures do exist. The clip shows a green tail floating in the water and a figure being put onto a stretcher. The video was taken by an Australian tourist on a beach in Minnesota, but the precise location is unknown. According to Paranormal Elite, a YouTube channel which was sent the footage, the person who filmed it stayed behind after the beach was cleared. The man, identified only family as Mackie, said large vehicles arrived with some people wearing yellow hazmat suits to protect them from dangerous materials. A Paranormal Elite spokesman said, "The creature seen bears striking resemblance to the mermaids depicted in fictional stories. There remains a mystery whether or not mermaids do inhabit lakes in Minnesota. After all, what happens when the lake freezes in the winter?" The enthusiast continued, "I urge everyone to keep an open mind and come to a conclusion yourself. If this is in fact fake, the question arises as to why anyone would go to such lengths to hoax a video like this." Now, I honestly don't know if this is real or not. It truly just stumps me. First up, we have the Australia sighting. A video that was uploaded in 2010 has recently resurfaced that was taken at the Great Barrier Reef. The footage shows a mysterious creature, a mermaid, swimming in the distance. Now, the video has more than 2.7 million views, and there's another video as well from the same person which has more than 4 million views. The narrator of the video explains how he went to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia to test an underwater cage that he had recently bought. 2 films were recorded, explains the narrator. He said he was testing out his camera and how to operate it, and he felt something behind him. He added that he only spotted the mermaid after he watched the footage on the computer. He never saw her in real life. Now, he claims that the video is real, not edited, not faked. Some people are claiming it's just a human in a costume, but I don't know. It looks pretty real to me. Up next, we have the Canada sighting. In June 1967, a mermaid was spotted on Main Island. She was seen in the early evening by passengers on ferries close to the west entrance to Active Pass. The Daily Colonist reported the sightings and included a photograph. Several witnesses said the mermaid had a large fish, apparently coho salmon, and one swore she had taken a bite out of it, the Colonist said on June 13th, 1967. Long silver blonde hair and topless condition were generally agreed upon. Now, the next day, the Colonist referred to her as the dimpled mermaid and said that she had the lower body of a fish or porpoise. The newspaper said she had been at Helen Point and had been seen eating a large salmon. A Cobble Hill man who flew over the area shortly after 7 p.m. managed to get an aerial photograph which reportedly corresponded closely to another photo taken. Then on June 15th, the newspaper reported that a $25,000 reward would be offered for the dimpled mermaid of Active Pass. The offer was made by Charles White of the Undersea Gardens, who added that a panel of competent marine biologists would have to confirm that the mermaid was the real thing. He also promised to negotiate a contract with the mermaid. "I think we could come to terms. We would offer a substantial salary, room and board, and a supply of those special combs that mermaids use," he said. Now, unfortunately, no mermaid came forward, and the story kind of just disappeared. Moving on to the Jamaica sighting. Jamaica seems to be a hotspot for mermaid sightings. I mean, there are hundreds of them. From YouTube to TikTok to Reddit, people have been sharing their stories. Now, this particular video was taken at Flatbridge, where there have always been rumors of sightings. Now, in the video, you can hear people saying it's a mermaid. "Watch, a mermaid, Jesus. Oh, she's gone," a woman says. Now, Daniel Gale, who has been diving and fishing in the area for the last 10 years, says the river has a season when the mermaid wants blood, and that's when a series of accidents usually occur. Whenever the river changes its color and gets dirty like now, that's when it's dangerous, and that's usually when the mermaid is active, Daniel told the Star. It said that the only thing that will quiet the mermaid is blood, so as soon as it's satisfied, all accidents will cease. Now, it seems like this mermaid is no Little Mermaid type and is more evil than people thought. Now we have caught in a net. Fishermen are pretty brave. They sail in stormy weather, they've seen all different types of animals, nothing can really scare them. Well, that is unless they stumble upon a mermaid. In a viral video, it appears that some fishermen caught a mermaid in a net. Now, they didn't need to do this, they were just trying to see what fish they caught, and boom, a clearly humanoid arm with a webbed hand reached back at them from the net as if it was trying to grab the men. Now, the men leaned back to avoid it, and unfortunately the net slipped and fell back into the ocean. They then scrambled to lean over the side of the ship to see if they could catch another glimpse of the creature, but they couldn't, and whatever they saw got away, never to be seen again. Now let's talk about the Spain sightings. While it's rare to even see a mermaid, spotting a mermaid in the same place twice is even more rare. But it seems like Spain is the place for this
this to happen. Travelers on a cruise noticed a figure sitting on a distant rock deep within the ocean. Upon closer observation, it became clear that this figure was a mermaid, sunbathing and relaxing. They recorded the video in Morocco, Spain. Then this other video was taken by two friends who were surfing together. They were just recording each other and having fun, but it seems like they actually caught a mermaid on film too. You can see its tail coming out of the water and going back in. Now as they both spot the creature in the water, you can tell that they're scared and they decide to leave, which was probably the best option because they would not want to get dragged underwater by that thing. Now the most recent sighting is the 2023 sighting. In this extremely viral TikTok clip, seafarer who goes by the username @sauce.90 on social media, his real name being Ryan Coleman, filmed two mysterious figures swimming by his boat as it traveled through the choppy waves. Now as he records, his voice can be heard saying, "What are those? What's going on?" Pointing the camera at the sea, he notes, "Something swimming fast underneath the water, something swimming real fast." Now everyone in the comments believes it's mermaids that are keeping up with his ship. Now a strange wailing can be heard in the background as he asks the camera, "What the F is that noise, bro? What is that noise?" Then as he continues to remark that he can hear the strange intruders, a shrieking voice announces, "Jump for me." Now just hearing it creeps me out. Just listen. Ugh, now how he was able to stay calm after hearing that is beyond me. Then there were the soldiers who saw a type of mermaid. During World War II, Japanese soldiers were stationed in the Key Islands in Indonesia and had some weird encounters with what they said were mermaids. Now the local villagers were familiar with these creatures and called them orang-iken, which translates to manfish. Now these creatures were described as being around 150 centimeters tall, having spikes on the spine, shoulder, and neck. They were said to have pink salmon-colored skin and a mouth that resembled a carp. Now rather than having a fishtail, these creatures had long arms and frog-like legs, both of which had talons at the end. Now the Japanese soldiers recorded many different sightings, saying they even saw one on land, but they mostly seemed at home in the water. For one instance, a troop of soldiers claimed to see one of these creatures jump out of the water onto a nearby rock. Now it turned and faced the soldiers and let out a gurgling burping noise that didn't seem to be too friendly. Then they saw another creature moving smoothly in the water towards them as fast as any fish would. Now not knowing the intention of the creatures, the soldiers started shooting at the rocks and into the water, only to have the creatures disappear from view. Now a sergeant named Mr. Taro spoke to the villagers and requested if any of the orang-iken were captured, dead or alive, to contact him immediately. It was soon after that the chief summoned the general and to his astonishment saw with his own eyes the lifeless aquatic creature. Now he described what he saw as roughly 4 foot 9 inches tall, pinkish skin, human looking face and limbs, spikes along its head, and a mouth like a carp. Now this just sounds like something out of a horror movie, absolutely terrifying. Now, fishermen don't get scared too easily, as they see a lot of scary things being out in the middle of the ocean, but I doubt any of them ever thought that they would come face to face with a mermaid. Yep, you heard that right. Some fishermen accidentally caught a mermaid. In an alarming video, it appears that some fishermen caught a mermaid in a net, and they were so shocked that they accidentally dropped it back into the water. A clearly humanoid arm with a webbed hand reached back at them from the net, as if trying to grab the men. Now the men lean back to avoid it, and the net slips and falls back into the ocean, with the mermaid escaping and them being left with questions. Now, is this legit? I think so. A user commented this on the video, and I agree. They said this video is amazing, almost a real proof about the existence of mermaids. Notice that the camera is unsteady, and it means that the situation took them by surprise. The creature trapped in the net is powerful and so desperate to get rid of it, and its aspect cannot correspond to a human being or any other animal. Now, it's understandable that the fishermen got in a panic and let it go back into the sea, but that was just so creepy. And finally, we have another story about an Australian mermaid, except this one is alive and well. A short clip was posted online of what could be a mermaid swimming among a reef. In 2007, a diver off the coast of Australia claimed to have encountered a real-life mermaid. In the footage, we see a diver filming a school of tropical fish in an unknown reef, and in the distance we see a humanoid figure swim towards the camera. Now it appears to be half human, half fish, with a long scale-covered tail. The enormous fins appear to propel the creature effortlessly through the water. When the clip was uploaded to the internet, it caused a speculative frenzy, as some herald the footage as strong evidence of mermaids. Now analysts have noticed that the creature swims easily through the water without the use of its arms, and instead it uses its long fin tail to glide forwards. Now could this diver have actually captured a real mermaid swimming in the sea? I think so.